It's Wednesday, May 1st. I'm Adam Walsh, and this is The Signal. Today on the show, we will talk about The Forgotten Warriors, a new documentary film that tells the story of a 9-day hunger strike by Mi'kmaq activists in 1983. I've got the director, the producer here, the head of director of photography here, you name it. We're going to talk about the making of this documentary. Yeah, it's about the making of the doc. It's why it's such an important look back at what I'll call recent history, right? 1983, not too long ago, but still part of history. And we'll also talk about lessons for the future. So that's the conversation we're going to have over the course of the next 55 minutes. And we'll begin, though, with the trailer.
My name is Noel Joe. I'm a Mi'kmaq from Mi'kmaq First Nation. And this is my journey. It is a journey of learning from our history, where we come from, and how the foundation of our community was built.
Well, when I was growing up in Cotton River, it wasn't too much around.
There was no technology there. There was no electricity even.
When you look back at racism, not saying it's gone now, but it's probably more open than it is now. We fought with government for 13 months, and they wouldn't release the funds.
The money that came through this federal-provincial agreement came from Ottawa to the province to us. And so they had a chance to intercept it, and they did. And they cut off our funding.
We had to do something.
31 people, men, women, and children, locked in Mr. Gowdy's office. They've locked all the doors. They've locked themselves inside.
We were trying to make a statement peacefully.
That was the hope, and that's not what happened.
And you look at the window, and you see all the cops down below.
I can remember a big cop coming to the wall.
The next day, we all trooped in the court and got charged.
That was it. I mean, day one, hey.
And that's when Chief Michael Joe said, well, I'm going to go on a hunger strike.
To go without food, to the point of starvation, if that's what it takes.
Dr. John Ross said to me, we have to get action because they will die.
He went on and on, day after day.
Day 6, day 7, stuff there to go through your mind.
Are these people really going to let our people die?
None of us were going to stop. We're going to give up.
No talk of, well, I can't do this more longer or nothing like that.
You commit yourself to something, and you can't back out.
Their conviction was so strong that they were willing to die. We all came together as brothers and family.
I think it's important that the younger generation know about it. I think it's important that the older generation continue to tell their stories.
If this community needs us to stand up, we're there.
Old soldiers never die anyway. As long as you're fighting for survival of a community, you'll always be an old soldier.
Their persistence, resilience, and willingness to give of themselves so unconditionally changed us, and we were given the chance to live the life we deserved. And it makes me so proud to be able to share their story.
All right, so that was the trailer for The Forgotten Warrior. So joining me for the conversation here in the studio, we've got Noel Joe, the director and the person behind the doc. We've got Roger Maunder, producer, owner of Up Sky Down Films, and Dave Howells, director of photography. How you doing, folks?
Good. All good.
Guys, thanks for coming in. So I watched this, I waited, watched it on CBC Gem, because this is where you can see it, last night, and gosh, it's awfully impactful. What a documentary.
Thank you.
Thank you. So for folks, if you want to watch it, it's on CBC Gem, easy to watch. Like I said, I just watched it last night. Noel, how's it, it's out in the world, there's been a screening.
Yep.
How are you feeling now about this thing?
Now I'm just beyond, the emotion is still there. It's so great to have the story now out there, so that people can see it. It can be watched. It can be learned about. It can be taught about. It's the messages and the support that's been coming in. It's been phenomenal. Mm. And I can never have imagined I would be here today from 2 years ago, right? Talking about it, right?
2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because all right. So let me go to the other two people here. How are you guys feeling about this thing?
Amazing. I think it was more like 2.5 years, really, by the time we first met and started to plan out everything. It's been quite the journey. This is Noel's first time film, so I was mentoring through the whole process. And the very first interview to where he is now is amazing. You say he's quite the professional now, wouldn't you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because I was only brought in on sort of the last year, and it's even then it's funny to watch. I mean, the whole documentary is interesting because it's actually 3 stories in one. There's the story about the hunger strike. There's the story about the community today and every day, and it's also the story of Noel and seeing this through his eyes, and sort of he's obviously, guiding us through the story and learning about it at the same time.
Yeah. Give us the backstory of this. When did the idea come to you, and then how did you go from, hey, this is an idea, to pushing it forward to actually making it into a thing? Because we have lots of ideas in life that don't turn into anything, and this turned into something quite substantial.
Yeah, it was. It happened pretty lightning fast.
Yeah.
But I've heard stories growing up about the hunger strike, and of course, Con River, has a holiday every year about the hunger strike. So the community, they do remember, and they do their thing with the hunger strike holiday. And there's a few pieces going around the school of the hunger strike, and of course hearing the stories of my family members that was actually in there. And then I've said one day, I said, well, let's do a documentary. A documentary should be made about this. And then of course I saw a post on Facebook, and it was from a community member, and it was talking about the 1983 Peckford government, and then that's all it said. And then I said, maybe a documentary should be made about this, and it could be used as an educational tool and taught in schools, and better than reading piece here and piece there all over Facebook or other places. Now it's in to have the story in one location. And then this Sunday morning, with jigs and reels and all that kind of stuff, and of course, sitting down watching the YouTube video, Shanniganuk, Music and Friends, me and my uncle and my aunt, and then that was with Bud Davidge, and it was produced by Upside Down Films. And at the end, it said Upside Down Films came up, and I said, well, that's who I'm going to get to help me.
That's
so
amazing.
Then I figured out, I said, okay, well, how am I going to get in contact with, Upside Down Films and all that kind of stuff? So, I worked with First Light, at the time, and I reached out to my friend Stacy, and I said, did First Light do any work with Upside Down Films? And she said, yeah, here's Roger's number, give him a call. So gave him a call, and I told him the story, and he said, let's do it. And, here we are. He said, well, I'll mentor you through the process and guide you and that kind of stuff. So we then, found, figured out, funding-wise for this and who was going to come on board and that kind of stuff. So it was really, really fast. And I remember making the post, commenting on the post. What I done was I snapshotted it as soon as I made the comment, so that I can actually look back and say, this is now what I'm going to do. And I think that was around February 7th when I made that comment. April 16th or 17th of that same year, we were doing our first interview, right?
Wow.
So
With Lorraine Michael.
With Lorraine Michael.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So it within the matter of a couple weeks, it was just, this is what we're going to do.
How hard, planning-wise, what does it take to plan this type of a thing, right? You got something that's about, roughly 45 minutes for the doc. Took 2.5 years to make. There's a lot of planning, and there's also getting folks on board with it, right? Telling people stories. What was that process like?
Well, I guess once I had figured out, okay, this is what I wanted to do. Yeah. The next step was to contact hunger strikers individually. Yeah. So what I did, they were my family, they were my uncles.
Yeah, how many uncles was it?
So it was 6 uncles. Yeah. Yeah, and of course cousins as well. Aubrey's cousin, and Marilyn is my cousin. So it was all like Con River is so small where you do have a family connection to everybody in some shape or form. But it was okay giving them a call on the phone. Yeah. Calling up. I remember driving home from St. John's and stopping in Clarenville and calling Uncle Bill and saying, Uncle Bill, this is what I want to do. I want to do a documentary about the hunger strike. And then he said, sure, yeah, okay. So the next step, once I got them all on board, was, okay, well, now I go to Chief and Council. And then I'll let Chief and Council know that, okay, this is something I want to do as a part of our history and part of our community. And of course, the past Chief and Council then was very supportive. We'll support you in whichever way we can. So it was getting all that in line, and then it was contacting the people that the main people that was in it. Of course, Joe Gowdy and reaching out to him and
Joe Gowdy, the former Minister of Rural Agriculture and Northern Development at the time. So and for context here, right? So this is 1983. The provincial government under Premier Brian Peckford withheld over $800,000 of federal funding from the community for a year, money that was supposed to go directly to Meow-Pukek, and the provincial government refused to release the money without taking $60,000 for administrative purposes. So Joe Gowdy was this central point of dealing for the government side for these discussions, right? Mm-hmm. So you went to Joe Gowdy.
Yeah, we reached out. I think we phoned him first. I think, yeah, and told him who we were and what we were doing, and he was on board. Right?
Wow.
So,
were you surprised? Right, because we have this. So there's an occupation of a government office. RNC comes in, people get taken out. Then this hunger strike starts, and he's the central figure. And it's decades later, and you're saying, "Hey, we want to talk about this big bit of history." Yep. And you might look a certain way to some people on it. You may not look great sometimes, but this is what we're going to talk about now. Was that surprising for you?
It was. It was because, I just heard stories about him through that, right? And through other people, newspaper clippings. So he was sort of like, okay, well, how are we going to get him? And what is he going to say? Oh. Joe is once I got to meet him, Joe is a remarkable person. Yeah. He's a real genuine, humble person. He reminded me so much of my grandfather. He's such, I don't know. Yeah.
That comes across in the doc, right? Go ahead.
He was very nervous about coming down.
Oh,
obviously.
Yeah.
It's like 40 years later, right? To be able to remember everything that happened. But Noel picked him up at the airport. It's a 2-hour drive from Gander, I believe. And they had a great conversation, talked about it all. And then the next day we were shooting. And Joe was just a very amazing individual that just opened up and had a lot of great things to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it must have. I mean, that must have been for. Tell me then, for when he arrived.
Yeah.
And these discussions take place. What's the reaction from folks in community with Joe Gowdy down there?
They were mixed emotions,
yeah.
Mixed reactions, all throughout that I heard throughout town and throughout the community, and a lot of people wanted to speak with him, and a lot of people, was wondering why he was here and all that kind of stuff.
Powwow, so everybody was there.
Yeah, everybody was there. And just that full day, it was so incredible to be able to see him, look at how far we have come in 40 years since that fight, and see the amazing development, what went on in Conn River, and to actually be there in person, you know, to see that. And I think that's a part of the reconciliation part.
I was just about to ask that, because we talk so much about reconciliation these days, right? And then you have a former Minister of the Crown going down, talking about this very important part of provincial community Mi'kmaq history for all of that. And plus there's an apology from him for just kind of explaining his role as well with it. It does play into that, hey, this sounds something like reconciliation here.
Mm-hmm. It really, to me, that's what reconciliation was all about.
Yeah,
you know, it was about coming down and you know, seeing what was on the go, and seeing, you know, just being with community and you know, really you know, focusing on that reconciliation, but understanding the past and looking back at the past, and okay, well, you know, understanding that this was probably wrong, but now we're here now to make it right. And, you know,
former Premier Peckford opted not to be part of this, saying he doesn't remember anything, right? What would it have meant if he said, actually, if he did remember some of this, and if he were to have been part of this process? What do you think that would have meant?
I think that would have been his golden opportunity for reconciliation.
Yeah.
And I think it would have meant, you know, would have been good just for people in general. But you know, nevertheless,
it is what it is.
It is what it is, yeah. And we won't. Yeah.
I actually think it makes it a far more powerful film without having him in it. Mm-hmm. Actually, because if he was in it, it would be more of the Peckford show.
Yeah,
and
I get
it's
that.
not really about him.
No,
it's about everybody else, and he's just merely just a cog in the whole story. Mm. But again, when you see the film, there is a last frame, mm-hmm. which is an absolute. I'm not going to say what it is, but it's a great last frame.
The last scene of the fine, I won't say what it is either to give it away. Go watch it on Gem. But the last scene is I thought it was really, really powerful. Mm-hmm. And yes, it's of a we'll just say there's a colonial presence there, and Noel, you're there, and gosh, is it ever meaningful? I think
that part. The whole documentary, the whole thing, you know, was. But you know, you can look back and look at different parts of what, you know, where we went and what we done was so amazing, so incredible. That journey alone, you know, you got to, you know, when we talk about, you know, of course, is my journey as well, but you know, I got to reconnect with my own culture again, and reconnect with family and friends, and reconnect with, you know, I guess, you know, it was emotionally tolling as well.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh,
so,
I can only. Yeah. Well, I can't imagine actually. Yeah. I mean, I can understand. I think, but you have something that you grew up with, stories you listened to, right, about this pivotal moment for community, this really difficult moment, and it's a family connection for you. So you've heard the stories, and now you're diving face first into actually, no, let's talk about everything that happened, and with each of you in detail. Like the weight of that must have been massive.
It was. You know, you know, the day of the release was such an important but emotional day. Because now it's, you know, you're carrying all those stories with you, you know. I wish we could have made a 3-hour, 4-hour documentary, but 45 minutes, you're not going to. So it was important to, I think, you know, get the important stuff in there, but also, you know, there was so much more to be added in there, and that those stories, I'll carry those stories with me for life.
Yeah.
So,
and then to have this piece of work, right, out in the world on CBC Gem, available for folks to see. First, I'll go with the importance for community, and then I've got a settler question I want to ask too. How important then is like the fact that this exists now, it is out in the world, for the reaction for the community in Miawpukek? I think,
I've been once it got released, I just took it all in, and this was, again, not for me. It was for the community. Yeah. It was for the younger generations to have a look at and see, and the generations to come, and the importance of learning our history and knowing that part of our history is so important for the younger generation and for the community to be able to, I guess, understand a bit about where everything all started in the community. It took some great people to get where we're at, and it, a lot of great people, not only just the hunger strikers and themselves and the negotiators, but all the supporters that went in. Really took it took a community to build where we're at, and it just shows the amount of pride that's there. Yeah. I've seen comments where we're proud in Miawpukek. We're it's so grateful to be in a place where we call home. And that's home to everybody. It's home to me, right? But the impact I think that's going to have on the younger generations going forward, I think is going to be immeasurable. It's going to be, time will tell. It's, right now I know students are already watching this in the school down home. Yeah. Right. So the Mi'kmaq teacher is actually, showing the kids the documentary in school, and and it started. She's showing it to almost every grade. Right. So the work is still is happening. Right. And it's really setting out what the first goal of this was to use it as an educational tool, and to bring about healing and bring about the importance of history and all that kind of stuff. So it was, I think the impact is going to be huge.
It's true. I mean, outside of Conn River, like a lot of Newfoundlanders as we were making this, didn't remember or couldn't recall anything about it.
I was 3 when it happened, so not old enough to realize, but it's one of those things where I figured growing up I would have kind of heard about it, and I didn't until, it was when you guys were filming, right? So we took the show down to Miawpukek for powwow, and folks were like, oh, wow, they're doing a hunger strike documentary. And I was like, oh, well, that sounds, and slowly learned more, then, learn more about it. But it's one of those things that you feel should be there for everyone to know about.
Well, it's such an important part of Newfoundland history, in my opinion. When Noel approached me about it, I briefly remember a little bit on the news. Yeah. But as we talked about it, I just got more enraged, and I couldn't believe that it outside of Conn, and like in the school system, that 41 years ago, that people don't know about it. But now that we've made this, I guess they can learn about it.
So what was the impact on you guys making this thing?
Major.
Yeah.
Major.
Yeah.
I was down in Conn 15 years ago doing an anti-racism video as part of a NIFCO. I used to work there as Newfoundland Independent Filmmakers Co-op, and I was a mentor for first-time filmmakers. And I was down there for a day, but I didn't really know much about the culture. And as I was helping Noel create this, I learned so much about the Mi'kmaq culture and how important it is. And in my mind, it's the way to live life by. Everybody there was so amazing and let us into their lives and let us tell the story. And I don't think anybody else could tell the story without Noel. Noel being related to pretty much everybody, and his your focus on telling the story correctly and right and with your heart was it was amazing just to see the progression.
I think the big thing actually was the level of trust shown. That's what blew me away. is, I'm obviously not from Newfoundland originally.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, no, it's well, a part near Bay Bulls is the British part there, and obviously, Roger is also an Anglo, but the level of trust that we were given to help tell the story that's what blew me away. It was, especially with the history of what's happened over the generations and centuries, and then to go down there and to be basically, I mean, obviously without Noel, none of this would have happened.
Yeah.
But there was, it wasn't just one person showed us trust; it was the whole community showed us trust. And it's like we're being interviewed now. It's an intimate experience, and when you're asking people to tell stories that they haven't really told before, I mean, everybody we interviewed was very, very humble, very modest. The opposite of me, and it's but it's this sort of thing where in my previous life of being in journalism, I sat in 1,000 interviews. And it's a wonderful experience to be a part of this stuff, to see it firsthand.
Yeah.
But there's also, as you're doing to us right now, there's a technique to getting people to talk comfortably. That's the difficult bit. Is everybody can talk, but it can be kind of stilted, or you're trying to lead them into this agenda. And the great thing was with Noel was that he intimately knows these people. And so it was much more of a conversation, and then the conversation just sort of, obviously, Noel's asking the questions and Roger's asking questions, but it's sort of, once the initial sort of shyness and modesty wore off, the interviews are incredible, absolutely incredible.
You tapped into the emotion that gets tapped into in these interviews, right? You can see the only way you can get there is with a massive amount of trust, and also folks feeling comfortable to be able to open up that way. And for everyone being featured in the doc, you can see that, right? You can see that this is, wow, they are really reliving and retelling this story, and that I found to be really impactful while watching it. I found, if we go back to our teachings, of trust and respect and humility and wisdom and courage and honor and love and all those values and teachings, which is what carried us through, patience and respect, all those, carried us through. And carried me through as well, being able to, have that respect. Okay, well, I didn't like to be, well, for starters, I didn't want to be in the film at all. Yeah. I didn't know, and I didn't want to be there at all. But I don't see how it could be done without, from watching it, you're the perfect person for this, right?
Yeah, and
that was Stuart Young from CBC Halifax.
Yeah.
Well, CBC came on this right from the beginning, and they were amazing. And Stuart was a big advocate of telling the story, and you had amazing suggestions, and that's kind of how that came to be.
Yeah, that's how that came to be, and one of my uncles, he said, I'm not gonna give an interview. You got to go in with me in my cabin. And I said, okay, I'll go with you in your cabin if that's what you want. And so anyway, we took a trip into the cabin, and it was just me and my two uncles, and we had a great old trip. It was a 6-hour quad ride, ATV ride into the wilderness. And
it's a bit of distance.
Yeah, yep. Yeah. And I told him that, and he said, I'm not telling anybody else. He said, my story. He said, I'll tell it to you. He said, I'm telling you to tell us, tell our story.
Wow.
Right. So I said, okay, well, I'll be in it then.
What did that feel like when he told you that?
That was powerful. It was emotional. It was a sense of, okay, well, now I have to. I have to, do it. I have to be in it somehow, figure it out.
That is a gigantic amount of responsibility, right?
Yeah.
Did you get nervous?
I was really,
because I imagine you would, right?
Yeah. And you know, I think Roger and them talked about it at the beginning. You know, when the first interview that I've done, like on camera, it drove my blood pressure up to look at it, because it was it was very frustrating. I knew what I wanted to say and that, but able, having 2 or 3 cameras pointed at me, then I realized, okay, well, if it's like this for me, what is it like for the hunger strikers now? And what is it like for the people that we're interviewing? If I'm going through this, okay, so then I had to think, okay, well, how, got to figure out how we're going to get them to relax and that. But of course, that trust and that was there, right? So.
You're listening to The Signal. I'm Adam Walsh. If you have thoughts on this show or any show, right, even as we're talking, the text line is open, 709-327-8206. Emails thesignal@cbc.ca. Call the Signal line and leave a message, 709-576-5260. We are talking about the new documentary, The Forgotten Warriors, a doc that tells the story of a 9-day hunger strike by Mi'kmaq activists in 1983. Here with me in the studio, we've got Noel Joe, the director, and I guess one of the stars of telling it, narrating the piece. We've got Roger Maunder, the producer, owner of Upside Down Films, and Dave Howells, director of photography for the project. What was it like for when opening night? What was it like? The screening in Mi'kmaq down in Conn River.
That was the best part of creating the whole piece. I think that was such an emotional night. Do you want to talk about that? Because you were front and center.
It was having. I think it was important to have the opening night in Conn River.
Yeah, of course.
With the hunger strikers and the families and the community, but I wouldn't have been able to do it without the help of the Tourism, Culture and Recreation Department, Colleen Lambert and the staff at the TCR and the band, and everybody pitched in to make it work. And it was so great to. It was just a roller coaster of emotion, like to sit down and I watched the film over and over, at my house, different hours a day, hours a night, different emotions. So all that emotion was actually out, but it was by myself, right? But watching it with 200 people in the room, and surrounded by family and friends, it was amazing.
Oh, that energy must have been something else.
Yeah, the energy was so it was really nice. We had a chef come down. It was a chef from the community. He went away 20-odd years ago to become a culinary Red Seal chef, and he came back to cater this event with all traditional foods. His uncle was one of the hunger strikers as well.
Right.
So it was a connection for him. His dad was, his dad was in one of the supporters as well. So it meant a lot for him to come down and with a team of Red Seal chefs to cater this event. We've had the local choir group there perform, and it was such a, I don't know, and you see comments on Facebook. It was such an amazing night to bring the community together to be proud of what. And what they're watching and who they are as well.
And I can't imagine the pressure that all must have been under.
Oh, before you hit play?
Before you hit play, to show it to the hunger strikers and the whole community that haven't seen any of this for 40 plus years. And to have that, you being the one that created this and made this.
Yeah, you talk about blood pressure for the first interview. I think they should have been monitoring your heart just 5 minutes before they play on that screening.
Sorry, the amazing thing was when the lights came on at the end. Yeah. I mean, I cry at the opening of a fridge door. I'm terrible. But it was, I turned around because we were all facing the wrong way if you did to the screen. And I was on the same table as Roger and Drew Kennedy, the other cinematographer who was working on this. And Noel and Jerry Evans, your stepfather, who's the incredible artist, your mother. And I turned around, and there wasn't a dry eye in the house. The whole all 200 were crying. Mm-hmm. I mean, there were tears everywhere, and it was just and it wasn't one of those tears of relief. So I'm like, oh my God, thank God we've done an amazing thing. There was a level of pride.
Yeah.
That it wasn't just obviously your parents there being pride in what you managed to produce, but it was a level of pride of the whole community that we did this and again it's a beautiful representation of what happened.
Yeah,
it wasn't badly done; it was beautifully done, and Noel nailed it. But it was funny because Noel's face, we're all crying. And Noel had this look of just complete and utter relief. Yeah. It was the only one. I don't think you were crying. I think it was everybody else was, emotional roller coaster. But you just had this level of like,
yeah. It was a big relief. So once it all happened, like I just took the week to, okay, I'm gonna rest, relax. I need to go to the cabin. And that's what I done. Got back on the land, and I went for, me and my cousin went up to my dad's cabin. We went for a canoe ride, and it was just had to unwind and to really take it all in, and and the support messages are still coming in. It's so great, and you go around the community and that's what they're they come up to me and they talk about, okay, geez, what amazing night, thank you for and it was an honor to do it, right?
One of the toughest parts of making the doc was finding the archival footage, because the archival footage is what put you there, right?
Oh yeah.
So we were supposed to have this documentary done within a year, and with the story has to tell itself, so it took a little longer than that. And we were researching, trying to find all the archival footage through the CBC archives, and we found quite a bit. But I got to throw out Darren from Archives, like a couple of weeks before we finished. Took it on his own to go through everything to find everything that was shot during that time and send it to us, and it was gold. It really helped us make this story, and I just want to say thanks to Darren, because he really did it.
Yeah, because the archive bits, they put you back in '83, right? Yeah. And then it's so interesting, having been to the community and folks who I've met who I didn't know anything about this backstory, and then I'm watching the documentary and I'm just like, no way. I had no idea that, for example, like Marilyn John, right, who's in the doc. Tell us about Marilyn John.
Oh, Marilyn is she's amazing. She's a real trailblazer. It was really important to get her to do an interview. Wonderful person. So it's really nice to have her story there as well. So.
Yeah, because we were down for powwow, and we met at her place having a bite to eat. Mm-hmm. And then, this is now a couple years later, I'm watching this thing last night, and I'm like, oh, I didn't, Force of Nature, Marilyn John, who was there at the time, amazing stuff, right?
Yeah. And it's really, so it really took everybody, that's what I mean, when it took everybody to do this, there was so much people behind the scenes, actually, that made it work, right?
I've got a piece of tape to play. It's Susan Hill, right? So Susan was at the community screening, and so Susan's mom is Marilyn John, and Marilyn was featured because she was one of the lead negotiators during the hunger strike. So Nate, that's the second piece of tape we got there. It's about 4 minutes, folks. We're going to roll on this, so give this a listen.
tell you a little bit about my mother. It's hard to tell a little bit about my mother because she's lived the most extraordinary life that I will never live up to. She's a very committed woman. She's somebody who comes in, she has a strong ideal, and she goes for what she wants, and that's always been the way she is. She's been so dedicated, so hardworking. But yeah, she's been somebody who's always had visions, and I've always went for them and have never taken a no for an answer. She played a very behind-the-scenes part as a negotiator with my Uncle Jerry. So the two of them worked together in the negotiations portion. So while the hunger strikers were actually going through the process of, you know, the hunger strike, they were in negotiations with the government, bringing back and forth to chief and council, to the community, you know, what it was the government was offering, what did we want, how much closer we were to a resolution. And that back and forth went on for some time, and so they were in town during that time. They were back and forth to, like I said, with the provincial representatives and with the federal representatives, and then with our hunger strikers as well, and supporting them in any which way that they could outside of negotiations as well. So she played a very important role in everything that came about, but a very behind-the-scenes role. And I think she does that throughout her life anyways. Like, I talk about her being a go-getter, but she's not always the person that's at the forefront of what's happening. But nonetheless, a very integral part of, you know, actually making things happen. So that's the role she played then, and that's a role she still plays. You know, I'm obviously very proud. There's stuff that she has not talked about with us growing up in the film, and I'm sure there were things that were hard for her to talk about, and some things that she probably, you know, didn't remember until things came up in the film. I know there was a couple parts where she was like, oh, I completely forgot that had happened. She was like, but it's great to see those memories come back to her. My biggest thing was really watching her reaction to the film, more so than watching her being in the film, because it was nice to see, you know, she was proud to get that recognition. I know for sure she was proud to do that, and I was proud to see her do that because, like I said, she's always taken that backseat approach, and she's not somebody who accepts that recognition well. You know, if it's something like this that's important about telling a story and passing on knowledge and history to our future generations, that's something that she's willing to get into a camera for, because that's what's important to her. She wants to make sure that our community and our culture is sustained through generations to come, and that's always been very, very important to her. So, you know, it was a wild mix of emotions. You don't just think about one thing, or you don't just think about like how, oh, this was nice, or this was great, or that was sad. It's really a mixing pot of emotions that come out you all at one time. So it's hard to kind of dive in and pick one to pick with, really. Like I said, it was actually very, very rare that we talked about it. I think that they were so focused on really enjoying the things that they had fought for so hard for, and they were focused, you know, it was never just this is enough. It was always that they want to make things better. They want to continue to make things better. So the work didn't end when they came home. They came home and they went right back at it. And again, trying to find ways that we can develop this community further so that life is more comfortable here for our people. I think that was always the focus, like I said. So there was never really a breathing period where she got to sit down and reflect. I mean, it's only now that she's getting to that. And so, yeah, we didn't really hear as much about it as what people would think we did until we were older. And now that I sit on our chief and council as a counselor, and now that I'm in a lot of the same roles that she was at the time, now we talk about it because it's relevant to the work that she did, and it's relevant to the work that I'm doing, and it's nice to have that sounding board. Like it's mentioned in the film, like you need to know where you've been to know where you're going. For me, it's great to have her there and that resource, and we want to make sure that we get that information from them while they're here, and they can guide us. Because we will make mistakes, we know that along the way, but it's them that are there, and they'll correct us, and they'll set us on the right path again, and keep pushing us forward.
Susan Hill there. This was at the community screening in Miapukek at Con River, talking about her mom, Marilyn John, who was featured in the doc that we're talking about here today. So Marilyn was one of the lead negotiators during the hunger strike of 1983. And the documentary, of course, is The Forgotten Warriors, a new doc that's out, and it tells the story of that 1983 hunger strike. Here with me in studio, the team behind it, we've got Noel Joe, the director, Roger Maunder, who's the producer, owner of Upside Down Films, Dave Howells, who was involved with the photography with this. So how you doing?
Well, good.
I keep wondering about your title on this.
well, it's like we keep laughing at director of photography because it's. I've never worked on any films before. The film is the devil's work. I got no interest whatsoever. I hate working with other people. However, I've known Roger for years, and we do a lot of the incredible opera stuff. And for some reason, the original idea was to have a portrait of the hunger strikers, and again, it's like it's all part of the way of getting people to talk to you. Is that you break them down first with a few portraits, and then they sort of relax. The stressful part is out, and then you have to talk then. Yeah, and
that's smart.
It's and obviously brought on for comedy reasons, but it's then Roger said, you should actually do some more filming. You sort of got the hang of this, and like I said, I've been in 1,000 interviews, and it was interesting because there's Con River. If you've never been down there, you should go down there. It's absolutely stunning.
It's great.
And when you come over the what I call the hump, and you see the sort of water in front of you, you can do that 1,000 times. It looks completely different every single time, and every single time it looks absolutely stunning. And the great thing about Roger is that he's directed a lot of stuff, and I'm an egomaniac, so he doesn't tell me what to do and just make it look beautiful. And we also had a huge shout out to Drew Kennedy, a photographer on the West Coast, who's also a very, very talented video guy. And basically, between the three of us, we managed to sort of like Roger being professional, Drew being professional, and me being a rank amateur, but can make it look very pretty. And then when you have somebody like Brad Tuck, the editor.
It's like 2 years in the making, and every time we do a shoot, I'd send Brad the footage, and he was putting this together as we were going. And what he did with the way he captured it and put it together is just so phenomenal. I've worked with Brad for 5 years now. We started with Stanford Hannah documentary, and we really work well together. So after he just really has a flair, and he's really good at telling the story when he gets the footage, especially when there's like direction notes and things.
Well, the other thing is that is that to be able to get the line that tells the story out of half an hour of footage. There's a real trick and a real talent there, and to do it again and again and again, to be able to weave the story together with not just one person telling it, but everybody telling it. That's very, 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 again, a talent that few
And the hardest
people
part
have.
about editing is that you have to get rid of some stuff that is so
Oh, the extra.
amazing.
Yeah, you're like, no, I don't want to cut that, but we have to. But it's
Yes.
great, but it's kind of maybe off focus, or it doesn't quite fit as good as this other one, but it's still fantastic.
Yeah.
That is tough.
It is tough.
It was, 'cause like I said, I'd love to make a 3 hour.
Oh yeah, right. It'd be like some 5, 3, 4 part series type of a thing, right? Yeah, of course.
But no, he done a wonderful job.
Oh, look,
remarkable.
Yeah. The pacing of the doc, right? With the storytelling, the visuals, everything. It flew by. Right, I was watching. I was just like, oh. It was fantastic, but it's done now. I could easily watch so much. So, like you're saying, I could watch so much more of it.
And it has to be exactly 44:08.
Yeah. 08. As we're winding down the show, what are the lessons from all this for looking down the road? Like what do you? It's either something you've learned or something, because I know you're talking about. Hey, school kids in Miapukek are now watching this and learning from it, right? This is on CBC Gem. People can watch it and learn from it. So, okay, so there's learning, right?
Yeah.
But what's the lesson for the road ahead when we look at this world we're in today?
I think it's just to I think just to be kind and be patient with governments, with people, with community. You can be tough on the issues, but be soft on the people, I think. And those are the lessons. I think. I think too is getting back to our history and getting back to know who we are and where we come from. And those are so important things. And I think that important lesson is the education part of it, right?
And reconciliation. Takes work, right?
It may not happen overnight, but it will happen. We have to have patience with one another, right? We have to have patience with governments, with community organizations, ourselves. Those are the lessons, I think, right?
Any other thoughts from as we wrap up from both of you?
Well, what Noel was just talking about, I totally agree with, and it's part of the secret teachings, right? And we went to Bay Nord as part of this, and I don't want to tell too much because it'll give it away, but that was such a spiritual and moving moment for all of us, I think.
Yeah. I was crying again, obviously.
Yes. Of course, obviously. But it's just, in the end, it's just be kind and don't be a... Can't say the word, but...
Be kind. Listen, right? Those are great lessons. And we're gonna go on a song shortly, but you folks are going to Gander, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, we'll be in Gander Friday night for the municipalities in El Symposium, and we'll be screening there at 8 o'clock.
I believe Lorraine Michaels is going to be
Lorraine
there.
Michaels is going to be there. Chief Noel Joe is going to be there. Yeah. So it's going to be a great evening.
Really looking forward to see what Lorraine has to say about it.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Because she was there from the beginning.
She was there, featured in the doc, and was there when it was happening. So, all right, folks, thank you for sitting down and having this chat today. For the DVD bonus feature of the Forgotten Warriors.
Thank you for having us.
All right.
Thank you.
Noel Joe, Roger Maunder, Dave Howells, thanks again, fellas. And folks, speaking of Gander, that's where this show is heading. We're packing up the car right now. We're going out for municipalities. The symposium for MNL, so we're going to talk about a bunch of stuff. Because we're not just going to Gander for Wednesday Wing Night. It might be part of it. But we're also going out to talk to and with community leaders from across the province, everything from fire services, economic development, community, climate resilience, and more. Don't miss the show tomorrow live from Gander. Here's Eastern Owl to take us out.